Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Anthony Rainey, Superintendent of Montecito Union School.
And I'm Nick Bruschi, the principal.
Thanks for joining us on Mustang Spotlight, where we take a look at one aspect of Montecito Union School and give you a little bit more of an in-depth look at it. Today we're going to be looking at data-driven instruction, and specifically we're going to use math as an example. How do teachers utilize data in order to inform their work so that each individual student has what they need to be successful? So Nick, what is data-driven instruction?
Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. Data-driven instruction is basing your teaching on student results. We give a pre-test before we get into a unit to see what students have already mastered, where their areas of strength and weaknesses are. We give check-ins, we give short quizzes so that we can constantly adapt what we're doing to meet the needs of the actual students sitting in front of you.
Well, that sounds great, but let's look at teachers in action. I'm going to send it off to Jeff Linder, the mathematics specialist, to take a look at what that means for the teachers here at Montecito Union School.
The majority of the data-driven differentiation work from the perspective of a teacher takes place behind the scene. It starts with students taking an assessment. In math, the assessment is often a quiz, pre-assessment, or post-assessment. The assessment is then graded by hand. From there, a point value for each question is entered into Illuminate, which is our student assessment system. Illuminate is a critical tool that allows us to view the student results in different ways. We can view the results by individual student, by class, by individual question, or as a comparison from one year to the next. Here you can see one of the reports available in Illuminate. The color coding tells us who is meeting grade level expectations, who is close to meeting those expectations, and who still needs significant work. The same report also allows the teacher to see if there are any specific questions or areas that most of the class has struggled with. The next step in the data-driven differentiation process is for grade level teams to get together and talk about the data and what to do next instructionally. Teachers reflect on their overall practice and discuss next steps to meet individual student needs.
Protractor use? That's hard. So this was about measuring an angle and about drawing an angle using a protractor. So I've been pulling those kids back and working one-on-one and they've got it. Okay. So that was a simple fix.
There is a lot of time and purposeful conversations that take place around student assessment data to identify individual student strength and needs so that targeted and personalized instruction can take place in the classroom.
Wow, that really gave me a sense of the amount of time and effort the teachers are putting into, figuring out where each student is, tracking their progress over time, and really making adjustments in order to give different kinds of experiences to the kids. That's really great. But I'm struck by looking at the way they're using data. Is this primarily for the students that are struggling in the area of mathematics, or is it also for kids that need areas of challenge? And then I'm also thinking, if there's a kid that needs challenge in the area of mathematics, is it across the board or do they only need challenge in some? Give me some information about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've actually found by looking closely at this data that even our most highly achieving math students have areas of strength and weakness. There are some things that they just haven't quite mastered yet. And being able to look very closely at the data on each particular assessment and each strand is really helpful for teachers to plan. Mathematics is really diverse. Something like geometry is much different than algebra or number sense. So even some of those kids who you would normally just think that they're going to be fine in the classroom need some extra attention.
Okay, so I'm picturing there's kids that need challenge, there's kids that need more time on task, there might be kids that just need it presented in a different way. So there's one teacher, maybe there's an instructional assistant at the time. That's a lot of different things going on in the classroom. How can one teacher really cater to each of those individual areas of need?
Well, that's the great thing about data is when you give a pre-test, you can quickly see who has what skills. There might be a skill that 90% of the class missed. That's going to be a whole group lesson. You might find another patchwork of 2 or 3 skills where a teacher could be pulling small groups to work with, floating around the room and doing some direct coaching to get kids where they need to be.
Okay, well that all sounds good, but I'd like to see it in action. Why don't we head back to Mr. Linder and look into the classrooms and see what the students are actually doing with this differentiated instruction in the area of mathematics.
The major difference you will notice with data-driven differentiation compared to the more traditional model of teaching is the amount of whole class instruction and activities has shrunk so that more personalized instruction and practice can take place. Let's take a look at what the personalized instruction looks like. As we visit a first grade classroom during their math workshop time, the first thing you observe is that students are spread around the room working on different tasks. A small group is on the floor working with the teacher. Pairs of students are playing a game and building with polydrons. A few students have their iPads and are working on Dreambox, and a few more students are doing an activity page from the curriculum. Some of these will be for all students over the course of the week, and others are more specific for individual students based on the data. The structure and setup looks very similar in the upper grades. In this classroom, we see a group of 3 students working on problem solving. The students were given a non-routine problem to think through, solve, and then communicate their reasoning and strategy. Another group is working with the teacher. This group needed support with multiplication of fractions. The teacher also works with groups of students that need extra challenge, on grade level support, and below grade level support. As we look around the room, we also see pairs of students playing a strategy game involving multi-digit multiplication. All of these different games, problems, and activities were purposefully identified for different students based upon the needs identified in quizzes, pre-assessments, and unit post-assessments. The structure stays the same throughout the year, but the who, what, and how keep changing as the students learn and grow.
Wow, that looks a lot different than when I was in the classroom, and I'm sad to say it even looks different than when I was teaching. I saw students learning in a small group led by a teacher. Sometimes they were learning in a small group and the teacher was helping another group. I saw technology being utilized. Definitely some numeracy going on with, working with numbers, but also some higher order thinking skills. I saw lots of different groups doing lots of different things, and the teacher as facilitator, like you were talking about, and not just always at the front of the classroom teaching math, which is kind of what I did when I was a teacher. But does this only work for math, or do we have this approach in other areas such as reading and language arts?
Yeah, we actually borrowed a lot of this methodology from our reading program. Our teachers has been so extensively trained in the Reading and Writing Workshop project out at Columbia University that has taught us to use mini lessons, to pull small group, to really look closely at data, to differentiate. So just like our students have reading levels and get differentiated instruction for their reading, our pre-assessments in our math help us do the same thing in mathematics.
Great, thanks, Nick. So we've been exploring several themes during this Mustang Spotlight around data-driven instruction, and specifically what preparation the teachers have to do. We saw them manipulating numbers and having collegial conversations as a group to really inform their instruction. And then we saw what that looked like in the classroom with lots of different activities going on to try to do everything we can to help each individual learner be successful. It's a lot of work.
It is. This is a much harder way to teach. It's so much easier just to open up the teacher's guide, and read the language and the quotes. Teachers have to do extensive planning. They have to be thoughtful about the assessments they give and what value they place on student responses so that they can really thoughtfully plan and prepare materials that challenge each and every child.
Well, as hard as it is, I'm glad we're doing it this way because the evidence is the student success, which is really very exciting. Well, thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Nick.
Thanks for joining us on Mustang Spotlight. See you next time, Mustangs.